So this is my Toyota Camry 94 model. It's had the head gasket, in fact a motor recondition, less than 50,000 Ks. It's blowing bubbles out of the radiator. Believe that there's a problem with the head gasket or head. I'm going to pull the heads off it and have a look at the situation. And let's mow in the back. Hello, Mo. So, wish us luck. So take photographs of everything. Good to undo the nut on the crankshaft pulley. The Camry's got a interference fit on the centre of the wheel with the hub, and can be very difficult to get the wheel off if you just undo the nuts. So whenever I'm taking the wheel off these days, I undo the nuts while the car's on the ground and drive it a little bit, wiggle the wheels to loosen the centre of the wheel from the hub. Drain the radiator. So labelling, hope to get the radiator and the battery out, and just about to do an interesting trick here with the crankshaft pulley wheel. This is a method for undoing the nut without a rattle gun. Not quite sure how that went. We'll have a look. Yeah, that worked on the second try. Bit fraught though. This is interesting. This line coming out of the water pump, it's got a loose bolt underneath the alternator. I don't think it should rattle like that. More will be revealed as we go a bit deeper. So here's the radiator. Had quite a lot of trouble getting it out. It was stuck on that right hand rubber bush, and I'm a little bit concerned about the hydraulic motor leaking hydraulic fluid. I'm not quite sure what we'll do about that. I was interested to see how the I don't know if it's the air conditioner or the oil cooler, but there's another radiator in front there. The air conditioner is, as I understand it, those bars there. And then because I've been towing a trailer with it, I added another oil cooler, which is hard to see, but it's down there. So that's all very interesting. What I'm fascinated about though is this here, where the bolt that supports this pipe going into the water pump has actually not been tightened. Probably most likely when the tappet cover gaskets were done about 3 months ago, and that could be the smoking gun, but Anyway, we'll keep on chipping away. So you have to ask yourself, why did the head gasket blow? It appears to me that overheating is one of the main causative factors. We're looking at the new overflow bottle and the clip-on lid for the old bottle, and you can see that it's broken. I've tried to repair it. Part of the process of the engine overheating was that it was blowing water out of the overflow bottle, and the lead on the tube that goes on the bottom of the overflow bottle came off, and I thought, and it's hot, and I didn't immediately reconnect it because I was out and it went on the to-do list. But that meant that the system was no longer sucking water back in, and I suspect that this loose bracket here that wasn't tightened properly after the half shafts were replaced has allowed the system to suck air when it's been cold. And then the problem with the bottle means that it's lost water. So you can see the radiator's out. I've ordered a new radiator from iRadiators in Sydney over the net. Check them out. That looks good. Let's hope so. $110. Got a whole heap of parts from Repco, their online store, radiator caps, coolant, oil filter, bits and pieces. Cheaper, significantly cheaper than Super Cheap, and I was able, with difficulty, to do business with their website. So it's ordered online and it'll be delivered in due course. Label everything. Maybe I'm a bit OCD, but when it comes to put it together, so you can see that making slow progress. About the next step is to take the inlet manifold off, and possibly then we'll see, but timing gears, covers off, maybe taking the exhaust pipe guards off, which you can't see much of, but pain in the bum. But one of the things I like about the car is it's quiet. So making progress. Just discovered this bolt centre of the screen wasn't tightened properly. I'm not sure if it's a standard bolt because you can't get a ring spanner or a socket onto it, and even an open ender doesn't really work too well. Anyway, there's a line on the back of the carby where it joins to the manifold that needs to be disconnected. And also there's a line underneath the carby that is difficult to undo. Both will allow the manifold to come off once removed. So this is interesting. This is the rear injector rail. What's causing all of that discoloration around there? I've ordered a new injector service kit to replace all of the O-rings on the injectors. Do I need to replace this pressure balance device, whatever, I'm guessing, at the end of the rail? looks a bit chonky. And this is the gasket on the whatever it's called, manifold, inlet manifold. Somebody really liked high temperature silicon, and this is the ERG valve again, you know, very liberal use of high temperature silicon. Struggling a bit today, but just had a minor victory. I managed to be down there and undone the exhaust flange gasket. One of the bolts was actually loose. Lots of funny bits with this. I'll show you another bit in a minute. When I undid the throttle body, you'll notice that on the right hand side there's a Allen key screw. On the left hand side there's a hex head bolt. Obviously somebody's lost the Allen key bolt for the manifold and replaced it with a bolt. Problem is, because it's so close, you can't do up the bolt, and it was loose. Thank goodness we put mountains of high temperature silicon on the manifold. So I managed to get the distributor out and all of the water and vacuum lines disconnected over this side, and starting to work on this side here. Removed the engine mount bar, and today that bar just up on the left of the lamp bolts on down behind the head. I don't know if I need to take it off, you know, it looks like it'd be good to get it off, but it's really difficult to get to. All of the exhaust manifolds are disconnected at the flange here and at the back, so hopefully the heads can come out with the exhaust manifolds connected. This is sort of the terror of the situation working here today. I've ordered new engine mounts. When I took this out, it was really stressed. There are 3 engine mounts, one at the back, one at the front, and this sort of torsion bar. So I've ordered a new one of these and a new one for the front. The one for the back looks like an impossible job to fit, so I just can't cope with it on this mission. Hopefully it's alright. And spares box. Well, actually eBay for the 2 engine mounts, about 10 or 20 bucks overall cheaper than spares box for both parts. Much better than price wise than Super Cheap and Repco. So yeah, eBay for the 2 engine mounts, and I've decided to get new radiator hoses and heater hoses. Like, go to all of this trouble, and you know, you've got 30-year-old hoses, like, I don't know, I started off just ordering the bottom one, which looked a bit shanky, and then I thought, oh come on man, do the top one as well. So heater hoses and radiator hoses, super cheap, very expensive, spares box good. The injectors have got this weird sort of burnish sort of staining around the back injector. The O-ring on the top of the injector is different colour to the other injectors. I've ordered an injector kit, which is all of the O-rings, and I'm trying to replace this device at the end, which appears to be some sort of pressure equalizer, and I've also ordered a bolt. See this bolt with the hexagon head on it here, this one here, and see this one over here. It's very tight here. You can't actually do this up because there's no room for a spanner or a socket on it beside the inlet plenum or whatever it's called. This is 10 mil metric pitch 1.25. Be careful with the Japanese engineering stuff. A little bit different to standard metric. And hopefully that'll come together. I've also ordered a plug tap to clean out the block head stud threads. Two. I ordered a metric one, and I think it's wrong. It was metric 1.5. Now ordered metric 1.25. I think it's 11 mil. Anyway, we'll see. Can't get the injectors out. You know, do they just come out, or why are they so hard to get out? You know, I sprayed WD-40 in there. Is there some sort of clip or something that I'm not aware of? Anyway, stay tuned. We'll find out. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. So, inching forward, just removed the thermostat cover and some associated bolts around the steering pump. Getting ready to take the cam belt off and the tappet covers. Getting a little bit scary, but anyway, distributors off. Yeah, hard to get down the back, but not impossible. This guy here is tricky to get out. He's actually got a bolt down the bottom there, you'll see. And I've just got those bolts taped in there so that I don't lose them. But the trick with this is you've got to go down the bottom and take off some bolts that actually tension the what is it? Steering pump at the back, air conditioning compressor at the front. Anyway, getting there slowly. This is a good system, and this is interesting. Like, is it really good to have all that goulash? High temperature silicone on the O-ring there. Anyway, so I'm working today to try and get the camshaft, belt, drive, sprockets loose, maybe even off. What you're looking at is a notch in the belt for the, I don't know, one of the compressors or alternators. You can see that there's a notch just to the left hand side, but up to the right you can see the actual timing marks. It's moved around a bit while I've been undoing these bolts at the top, and if we go up here, these are the bolts that I'm trying to undo, and you'll see that it's very tight down the back here. Right, you can see I've got a socket sitting on it, and I've got my special tool in the sprocket. It's very hard to get a tool into the socket, but I've managed to loosen it, and it's now finger tight. Quite proud of my my tool. Let me show you my tool if I can get it out. This is a tool I've made up for holding those sprockets without damaging them while I undo them. And so, you know, inching forward. Thanks for watching. Trying to stay with the process and not get hung up in the agenda. That is, when will it be finished? Interesting 6mm from the hardware bolt through the camshaft transfer gear between the inlet and outlet shafts. But over here on the back, you'll notice the clamp, because the threaded hole doesn't match up with the standard hole. Somebody's put them in around the wrong way, I suspect, and I may need to take that clamp off to get to the bolts to take the camshaft off, but that's interesting. And also these injectors, I've been spraying them with WD-40, and you'll notice that they're starting, this one's still tight, but they're starting to come out. So getting there. So the next step is to take the camshafts out, but in order to take the belt-driven cam wheels off, I want to unload the belt. So, I don't know if you can see here, but we're undoing the cam drive belt tensioner. It appears to me that the coordination of the two camshafts together is not necessarily connected to the overall timing of the motor. The timing gears here, you can see this is the back bank, and you can just see 2 dots on that rear gear, which is obviously probably 180 degrees out of sync with the other camshaft. But the front gear on the camshafts is on the timing mark for the timing belt. Now, if you look at the front gear, you'll notice that the timing belt, the timing gears are actually meshed with the single point right together, and the timing belt is on the timing belt at the front, is on the timing marks at the front. So it would appear to me that the camshafts need to be set up on the heads and then aligned to the timing belt. Struggling with the camshaft bolts. They're supposed to be 10mm, but that's actually a 3/8 ring spanner on that right hand one, which has been very difficult. Just got it undone. Hallelujah. Ended up filing it a bit and hammering it on, and bang, it just came off. But the 10mm 6-sided socket, no, you know, not a happening thing. But anyway, progressing along slowly but surely. Well, that's a relief, getting those off. Onto the back now. So the heads uses head studs that are 12 point, and I've got a 12 point socket that is very loose, and it's actually jumping on the socket, on the stud. So I've ordered a 1532, which is 11.91. Hopefully that's going to get us there, but at the moment we've hit a snag, as you tend to on these projects. You know, is that what a 12mm socket on a 12 point bolt is supposed to do? I mean, even that, look at that, you know. This one's loose, but you know, this one's loose. I don't know, maybe I've got a big 12mm socket, you know. What is it? Sidchrome 12mm, made in Australia. I mean, it's old, but I can't see how it can be a problem with the socket. But anyway, slowly but surely, getting there. I've got an injector service kit with all the O-rings and what have you, but I'm tempted to get them, send them away and get them tested. Maybe include the service kit I bought. Still thinking about that. Do a bit of have a look, a bit of YouTube on injector service. This is the inlet something. You can see it's had latherings of high temperature silicon on it. Just been using the angle grinder to grind it off with. Joking. The other part of the exercise, see the special tool. It's actually a Chinese takeaway fork. It's been specially prepared. Seems to work quite well. Anyway, slowly but surely. WD-40, what wonderful stuff. Seems to be very reassuring putting it on, you know. Put plenty of WD-40 on. Anyway, getting there. This is the hydraulic fan on the 3VZ FE, Camry 94. Interesting engineering device, and it's just leaking a little bit of hydraulic fluid. So do we fix it, or do we just bang it back in and try to fix it, don't we? And when we try to fix it, what happens? That nut in the middle doesn't seem to be loosening, but the whole shaft has started to turn. So, you know, what does that mean? You know. Anyway, another mystery. Stay tuned. So, surprise, surprise, it's left-hand thread. And what's Tony managed to do? He's managed to strip the nut. Strip the nut in a way that even now he's realised that he was yanking it the wrong way. Can't undo it the right way. Let's move on to see something else. Let's see if we can't fuck something else up, excuse the language. What about this engine mount down here? Yes, okay, alright. You think those bolts will be easy to undo? Oh yeah, they'll be easy. Nothing much to go. No problem there. Now, why can't I undo that? Even with a metre of breaker bar on there, I can't seem to get that nut undone. I wonder why. Let's look at the new part. Okay, let's come over here. Okay, here's the new part. Now, if you look very closely, which you probably can't see, that nut is welded on. The trick here is that one comes from the bottom, Tony. Well, there's the new engine mount. Had to jack up the motor to get the old one out and the new one in. Got a lot easier after I realised that that nut at the front there is welded on. Definitely recommend you don't try to undo that nut. It's pretty much impossible. Today the mission is to try to remove the pulley on the bottom there and replace the timing belt. Hopefully this afternoon we'll get the 1532 socket and we'll find out if we can continue removing the heads or whether we've got to go to some other bizarre strategy like drilling the stud out. Wish me luck. So that's a 1532 socket, 11.91 mil, fits on the 3MZ FE head studs really snug. Wish I had this at the start of the project. Going sideways for a moment, that's a wheel puller that I made. That was my second attempt. I had an existing wheel puller, but couldn't get it to work in the space constraints. That's two channels, or two square tubes cut out to make U-shaped and bolted inside a hefty piece of flat bar. This little number has to come off, and interesting to note that underneath here, I'm not going to take that bolt off, but there's actually a mark, a dot on the end of the gear, on the end of the crankshaft, that you can set up your timing belt with. But for today, the terror of the situation is down in here. I don't know if you can see, but what we're actually doing here is we're drilling the head bolt out, because the socket, even the 1532 socket, is spinning on the top. All of the other head studs have been cracked and work okay. Wish me luck with the back. Anyway, off to work we go. Thanks for sharing. Well, I've been drilling and I've been drilling and I've been drilling, and bang, you know, the top came off the nut, and I'm hoping that I'm now about to get lucky and lift this head off. Well, the heads are off. This back one looks a bit dicey at the back, but it was difficult to lift off. So it'd be interesting to have a look at that in more detail. Really good to undo the steering pump from the head before you try to lift the head out. Just one bolt. This is the front head. Gasket looks much more good. Managed to get a little bit of drilling down the oil gallery here, which is freaking me out. I'm thinking maybe I need to take the sump off and flush it out. We'll do that. think about that more on another day. Here's the back head. Notice the ERG tube, and the light's not fantastic, but yeah. So this is the back head. Which one was leaking water into the water jacket, or blowing compression into the water jacket? So that's interesting. And this is the other head. Could be this one too, but we're inclined to think it's the back one, but we'll find out. So today, get the exhaust manifolds off, get the camshafts back on, and you know, maybe protect the pistons with some WD-40 and get that water out of the back, which was there yesterday in there, and tidy up the steering pump, and yeah, it's Sunday. So slowly but surely, this is freaky. Will I ever get it back together and get it to run? Who knows? So this is hours of fiddling. Very sludgy. Whole can of degreaser, and getting there slowly but surely. So this is the deck of the block. I've just lifted the head gasket off, and it looks like a bit of work we've got to do to clean that up. This is the underside of the gasket coming off the head. It's interesting, you know, if you look closely, it doesn't look like there's been any movement of compressed gas into the water chambers, but you know, I suspect it's on the back. Anyway, how do you stop crap from getting down the side of the pistons on top of the rings, you know? Will this do it? Should I put some grease around there, you know? Anyway, moving on. And this is the top. Again, you know, gasket looks pretty good to me, but you know, was only just leaking and tended to only do it when it was hot. So you know, anyway, moving on. So the timing belt doesn't have the camshaft marks on the belt for the camshaft pulleys. So how we're going to time that is an interesting mystery. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the position of the camshaft wheels and the marks on the guards and what have you in the engine. But it'd be really helpful to have marks on the belt, but not supplied, so not sure. I might go back to the supplier, see if we can do better. This is the radiator, new radiator, second-hand hydraulic motor, actually from a V8 Solara. Paging through Gumtree, got a second-hand motor. Doesn't appear to be leaking like the old one was, and So we've managed to fit all of that up. We've run a bit of high temperature silicone in the gap down there to try and improve the pressure drop across the radiator. Yeah, nice setup. Great value. Radiator, $100, $110. Today I'm trying to find a way to stop crap getting down, so I've cut these head studs so that I can screw them into the head bolts. I've also got a plug tap to clean them out before we go with the installation. And anyway, slowly but surely. So I've got this little socket in the dowel plugs. I've got a head stud cut off and grooved underneath it, and I've got the vice grips with a bit of rag on the outside of the dowel, squeezing as hard as I'm game. I've got the screwdriver down through the socket. I'm trying to undo the screw to push the dowel out. See the dowel? Not a happening thing. So I've decided to go sideways, and I've got bits of wire with rag tied to it in all of the cavities, oil galleries, water, whatever. And then I've put a bit of grease on top of the rags to catch all the crap, and I've cut cardboard circles. There's 2 cardboard circles in each pot, and I've just put a bit of grease around the edge, so I plan to pull the cardboard out and then wipe the grease. I don't know, I don't think this is how the professionals do it. The graphite gasket is really stuck quite hard to the head, to the block, the deck of the block. You can see the block was machined before, and I expect the block to be pretty good, but I'm not going to be able to scrape it clean with a fork. I think we're going to have to have some heavier artillery in the tool bag to get it nice and smooth. But anyway, that's what we're doing at the moment, one step at a time. Thanks. So I'm wondering, why did the head gasket blow? And if you look at this rear exhaust manifold gasket, you see that it's actually stuffed. And so I'm very confident that the back exhaust manifold was leaking significantly, which means you've got a lot of heat between the firewall and the rear head. Notice also that helicoils have been inserted in both the back. You can't see it here, but the back and the front studs for the exhaust manifold have got helicoils in them. And I'm wondering, given the temperature stresses and the importance of the flange gasket, whether that's actually a good solution. And I'm thinking about drilling and tapping them out to a larger size while I've got them out. I figure that way I get a better flange gasket, longer term seal, less likely to have the stud work loose and the flange gasket end up like that. This is what the front gasket looks like, obviously in reasonable health. Anyway, moving on. I've formed up this old piece of aluminium to fit as a shroud underneath the radiator here. I don't know if you can see it, but the idea being to restore the original manufacturer's setup in regard to the sort of aerodynamics of the radiator. So I've warmed up the block with the dragon blower, the double LPG or butane or whatever it is heater. Not much, just a little bit. I've had the 16mm puller in the freezer, and it was a little bit tough to get. I had to tap it on, and I've got that socket in the centre of it that just fits really snugly, and the stud, the cut-off stud, is still screwed in underneath it. So wish me luck. We're going to put the puller on it now. So there we go, one dowel removed. Not so easy, I'll tell you. Impossible without the right tool, you know, impossible. Anyway, making progress slowly. So the good news is 2 dowel pins have successfully been removed from the front half of the engine, front or right bank depending on your perspective. And the bad news is that on removal of the first of the rear dowel pins, there was a loud crack, and voila, dowel pin removal tool, which I was a long way out of town to get hold of, has actually broken on the collar. T&E tools have been fantastic and have agreed to currently, and it's in transit, ship me a 16mm collar. So hopefully, you know, we'll be back on track there. This is the Valley manifold, which has had mountains of degreaser and toothbrush attention, hose it, you know, dry it. You know, the aluminium looks a bit floury, you know. I don't know if this is how the professionals do it, but it'd be good if I could actually run the gasket surfaces over my yeah. And I don't know if you can see it, but what is that little channel down the side of the injectors? Is that, it looks like a vacuum tube, but I suspect it might actually be cooling. Is that cooling for the injectors? Anyway, we're learning. Now, moving on, this is interesting. So, I don't know if you can see that, but this is two sheets of glass, laminated glass, about 10mm total. One sitting on top of the other, and just a little bit bigger than a head size, engine block deck size. This is you know, a 0.05mm feeler gauge, and he put a nice chamfer on the edge of the things, which was thank you for that, Alan, at Alpine Glazing. And what's interesting here is, I don't know if we can get this to happen, but if we run that down the bevel between the two sheets, nothing. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, look at that. I don't know if you can see that, but that's the .05 feeler gauge running between the glass sheets. And you can do it with the ruler as well, and it's like a bit sticky, but I think, you know, rather than doing it with the grinding wheel, we're not too bad. I'm thinking I might get some lapping if I can, and just lap the two sheets together before I glue some 320 emery paper to them. Anyway, hope you're enjoying my gum tree in the background. It's a monster and it's beautiful, you know. And this is my winter supply of wood. That's some pallets and what have you that somebody wanted to get rid of, and I don't know if you can see these big blocks, but about five ton of blocks in there that should go well on the open fire. Thanks, bye. I've got this inlet manifold soaking with diesel down these barrels. I mean, you know, does it make that much difference if they've got a bit of carbon on them or not, you know? Cleaning. The degreaser tends to make the aluminium look floury, which is a bit of a worry. Anyway, to today's project, I don't know if you can see, but we've got a sheet of glass at the back there. It's about 10 mil. It's got a lamination between two sheets. Then this is 320 silicon carbide waterproof electro-coated abrasive paper. I'm going to stick using quick grip, spray adhesive, and wish me luck. So there's the paper glued to the glass. So not a lot of room to move, but hopefully enough. And so that's how this is going. Paper's very fine for the job. It's interesting to look at the top of the deck of the block. This block was machined less than 50,000 Ks ago, and I would expect it to be really pretty flat cast iron block. But you can see, at least if my plate is flat, it's quite noticeable that there are some high areas. And look at the damage to the block on the left hand side. I suspect that after it was machined last time, it was shipped from Benalla to Mansfield without the heads on. I suspect that that was damaged in transit with the block sitting on a crate upside down. Fortunately, it's not between the water jacket and the compression area. You know, you can see that it was high. You know, was that the smoking gun? I don't know, I don't think so. But yeah, making progress, slowly but surely. So this is the back 3 cylinders. I've scraped the graphite gasket off the deck of the block as much as I can. They're bits of cardboard, 2 in each pot, with grease around the edge, bit of rubbish falling in there, and the head studs are cut and slotted and in there to stop rubbish getting into the head studs. And the water and oil galleries have got wire with bits of rag on top. The wires to stop the rag disappearing down, and grease on top of everything. Yeah, going to be a nightmare to get it all cleaned up, but hopefully we haven't got too much crap. I'm planning to probably take the sump off and wash it out. That's the scraper that I've been using, and here on the front you can see what I'm hoping to achieve on the back. This is the device that I've constructed to work with. That's 80 grit. I'm going to take the rubbish with what's left of that 80 grit. It's done a bit of work. I'm going to use that, and I've got some 60 because what I found was the machining of the deck is quite let me say 5 o'clock on all of the pots. That'd be 4 o'clock from this perspective. We're all quite negative, and in fact down here, you know, you can still just feel the machining marks, but I just can't, you know, it's pretty good. I don't know if you can see it. There's a slight discoloration there. And also up on this pot here, you probably can't see it, but between the combustion chamber and the water jacket is a bit of degradation, but the cylinder liner seems to be really good, and yeah, it's only, you know, I don't know, you know, if I had a milling machine, even if I had a milling machine, I suspect I'd have to take a lot off to make that happen. So back to work. Thanks, bye. So this is 10mm glass with P60 Norton waterproof paper on it. I'm about to go to P80, but I've been using P60 on the deck of the block because it was really badly machined in its last trip to the engine reconditioner. After I've used these P60s on the deck of the block, I've been just fixing up this exhaust manifold by putting it on here and running like that. As you can see, it's pretty close. I'll give it a rub with some 60 on the way out as well, with some 80. I'm about to go to 80, so if you look at this, you'll see that the mark here, mark here, Yeah. Best way I've found to get them on is to sort of line it up pretty much with the end and try and get the edge down the side of the glass. Goes on here. And what is it, Malt? What? Okay. Voila. Wanted to avoid trying to pull the inlet manifold microscopically to pieces, but this port in here, and you can't probably see it in the light, but down the bottom there was actually, it joins up to the you know, the ERG valve that goes to the exhaust manifold. And it was completely blocked. So check that if you're in this country. So I'm quite nervous about this, but you can see I've just dressed up that side a little bit. This side I've only touched. Gives you a bit of an indication of where it's high. And taken a few studs out of the top here, so the idea being that sit on here like this very gently, and like that. This is P180. So it's possible to remove the half shafts by undoing the 3 bolts at the bottom of the strut on the ball joint. A little bit tricky. You have to jack up the ball joint, which is a bit precarious. This one's about to come out, and yeah, don't know about putting them back in, but we'll update that in due course. Thanks. So this is interesting. This is the oil pickup. Lashings of high temperature silicon. Those wires hanging down there are part of the scenario I've got at the top with bits of rag to stop the bits of rag disappearing down the water jackets and the oil jackets, but probably not an issue. It was good to take the sump off. I found that the head stud that I had to drill, or head bolt that I drilled, I couldn't get out, had actually some of the drillings had dropped down through one of these oil galleries into the sump. So yeah, all of that toing froing about, do I need to take the sump off? Yes, I do need to take the sump off. Anyway, thanks for that. Bye. So I'm dealing with mission creep here. Had to clean the pistons, top of the pistons, and I've got a bit of scoring on the cylinder wall. Original plan was just to whack some head gaskets on it, assuming that given the block had already been planed, all it had needed is a bit of a finish. But when we found the abortion that had been done to that, and with the EGR valve blocked, I don't know, but it seemed to have a lot of carbon on top of the piston, so we cleaned that off. Took a week, and I've been desperate to move the pistons, and you know, a couple of the cylinders don't look fantastic. This motor's done less than 50,000. Pistons are 0.5 millimeters oversize. So yeah, I'm thinking a 20 thou ring kit should work. Today the mission is to drop the pistons out, if possible. taken the splash pan off and the oil pump pickup. Shouldn't be that hard to get the pistons out. I've ordered a honing machine, and yeah, I'm looking for rings. Anyway, thanks for that. Well, as you can see, I've got as much grease packed into the centre of that axle joined to the CV there. Notice that I've got a stud sawn off that I've put a screw head in, so that's another one there, so we'll get those centered. This is how can I say, almost scary, but there's not much weight on it, and all I need to do is just get the axle through the center here, and it doesn't matter. It's just got a little bit of lift in it, not much. Hang on. So here's the other side of the equation. You can't see it really clearly, but I hand cut a gasket and I've super glued it into position there. So it's quite hard to get all of that into the joint. Those are the nuts that'll go on. And I'm just going to put a bag over the top here with a rubber band on it. Hang on a second. Even just getting the rubber band over the top, I've got grease all over the inside there. So I don't know how you'd get the gasket in there without gluing it. Rather not have super glue on it, but not too bad. So there we go with that in there. It'll still go in further, and then hopefully we can just take the bag off and slip it onto the joint there. I'm pretty pleased with that. Still got to get this end of things sorted, which is going to be a little bit challenging, but I've got a feeling it'll come together. Yeah, well, don't try this at home, but rain's coming, and we've got to get the job done. So this is the first time I've videoed with the camera on a tripod, or not actually on a tripod, but got it clamped up. So these are the new bearings. That one looks really nice. These rods have been cleaned with degreaser and then soaked in oil till I got ready. Today I've washed them extensively, and I used some 230 emery cloth underneath here to clean that up, and then cleaned them again. And I've had them in the oven just for a minute. It's autumn here, so you can see I'm working on the veranda, and the leaves are blowing down. It's really quite demanding to have a somewhat sterile, dare I say, environment. These are bearings coming out. To my untrained eye, they look pretty good, which is reassuring, given that the crankshaft's still in the car and I don't have the tools to mic it and check it. But I just wanted to take the pistons out because I made such a mess cleaning the top of them, and when I got them out, the rings were all stuck. And so I'll show you the pistons in due course, but that's all I've got for you here. Thanks. So that's the front of the engine, marked by that mark there. I'm going to put the oil expander ring on first, and we're going to orient it at 12 o'clock. There we go with that. That was easy. Then we're going to go for a scraper ring, and we're going to go with that at on the bottom, and at about 2 o'clock. So that's it there. Okay. Going to go for a second oil scraper ring. The mistake with these pistons was to leave them in the cleaning solution for a bit too long. But the last place they were was the oven. Before that, I cleaned them with like Ajax. It's a powder cleaner with a toothbrush. Rinse them really well, and then put them in the oven. So that's the gap there. So there's the ring expander gap. There's the scraper bottom. There's the scraper top. Okay. So now going for second ring, and second ring, that's the top. You probably can't see it in the video, but there's a 2N50. These are 50, half a mil oversized. So we're going to put them at about here. Fraught. Okay. So there is the second ring with the top up. Now there's an N50, and we're going to put that at 180 degrees, and we're going to put it out here. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to oil those rings and the journals in there, and then put it in a plastic bag. I've got a box numbered. Yep. Well, about to try and torque up the exhaust manifold bolts with the new torque wrench. Don't forget the half moons. When I took the half moons out, they had all carbon. They were obviously leaking. Looked alright, but quite loose. Yeah, that's it. Well, this is the right hand or front head ready to go on. Probably can't see in this, but it's interesting how the machine marks show up. You see I've got the exhaust manifold connected with the guard. Cleaned it with acetone. I'm enjoying my new torque wrench. Turn it on here. Use these two buttons here to change the units. That's 15 on the dial. Foot-pounds. $15. 17. About 16. 25. 25. 25. 25. 25. 35. Just cleaning the hydraulic lifters. It's interesting, you look at this crap in the centre there, a mark on there. There's also a ring around the inside of the hydraulic lifter. It tends to have a bit of crap in it. So cleaning them up in the sink. We'll put them in the oven, warm them up, dry them out, oil them up and put them in. Thanks for that. Egg crates work well. We've got 24. These ones have been done. Don't mix them up. And this is the front or right hand engine deck. Big tip if you're putting the back one on, make sure you connect the steering pump, which is down there, you can just see the wheel, to the head before you mount the head, because it's really difficult to do business with it once the head's installed. So yeah, it'd be nice to be videoing this in one stream, but I don't have the camera set up for it. Well, this is the sump baffle. I've rubbed that down with 150 emery paper, coated it in oil. The nuts and studs have got a bit of Loctite on them, and the pickup here where it connects into the oil pump, it's got a hand cut paper / cardboard gasket that I've just rubbed a bit of high temperature silicone on either side. Everything's liberally coated with oil, and yeah, be good to get the sump back on here. There's that that stud that had a helicoil in it. Drilled it out, tapped it. I think it's 12 mil now, rather than 10. So getting there. Thanks. I've cut these 3 screw studs so I can position the sump on the bottom of the engine block and then take them out. These jigamaroos are going to allow me to high temperature silicone the surface, the mating surface of the sump pan, and bolt it up, but bolt it up with about a 1 mil, maybe a little bit more, gap. So, and then I'll let the silicone go off, and then I'll pull these out and tighten the pan. So this is the block setup. Notice I've got the pin stud in there. I've just wiped that down with acetone. It's interesting, you know, see the other pin there? You think it's clean, and you wipe it with acetone and you get a dirty rag. It's the oil pickup, and there's the other pin. I've just been cleaning the oil pickup here. I cut a cardboard, you know, I don't know, special gasket material, gasket for that, and coated it on both sides with silicone, and I've just trimmed it off with a Stanley knife. Quite difficult, and a bit of gasket material came off as well, but hopefully we won't end up with anything coming off there in due course and floating around in the sump. So some would say, here's a guy who knows how to make a simple job complicated. These aluminium brackets are designed to maintain a gap and let the silicone go off a little bit before we do the final tighten, and obviously the clamps there to hold it while we put the stuff on. Yeah, well, that's the silicone. Let's hope goes on okay and doesn't leak. So I'm about ready to bolt in the inlet manifold, and really quite nice gaskets here. Difficult to do with one hand, but seeing the gasket. A little bit worried about this area here. I've planed the head with the sandpaper, the graphite paper on the 10mm glass with the orange handles. Difficult to get those studs out. And I've also done the bottom of the manifold. So should be pretty good. I've also got dielectric grease where the injectors fit into the new O-rings are a little bit tight, and the grease just lets them slip in really nice. So the injectors are ready to go in once we get that all done. And this was really had a lot of carbon. So moving on. So this is the mission of the moment. Notice that when you push that up, there's a little bit of movement there. That's because it's sitting on the gasket. I've rubbed this with emery paper, and yeah, it's got a bit of corrosion on it, but not too bad. And I think I'll put a little bit of high temperature silicone on it. This is the thermostat, and it sits out proud a little bit, so that when you do it up, it actually compresses that rubber ring around the gasket, around the thermostat. It's interesting to note, it's a bit hard to see, but there's a little bauble in the top of the thermostat there that allows the air to get through. Needs to be at the top. And I was going to put I cut a gasket for it, but I think that'll actually compromise it compressing down on the rubber ring on the thermostat, which sort of squishes between the housing and the body of the whatever. So yeah, I don't think I'll put that gasket in. Perhaps just a little bit of high temperature silicone. This is a timing belt cover for the timing gear on the end of the crankshaft. This little item had numerous problems. The steel bushes had been mislaid, and yeah, the thing had been bastardized. So I made some new steel bushes, which didn't work out too well because they were a little bit oversized. When I drilled the situation, some of them broke. So this is araldite, you know, filing to get off the excess. Hopefully it should be alright. We need this for the timing marks. So we're trying to get the timing belt set up. It's really quite tricky. The timing belt needs to wrap around and mesh into the gear on the crankshaft, and then there's a guard. You can just see it below the cable tie there, that actually goes on top of the gear that runs on the end of the crankshaft, so you can't see the meshing. That's why I've got the cable tie on there, to try and hold the cable tight and make sure that it doesn't break out of the there's a point on the gear, and the mark on the timing belt lines up with the dot on the gear on the crankshaft. Anyway, so then there's the guard on top, and then we've got the harmonic balancer, and you can just see in the bottom right hand side where there's a mark on the harmonic balancer that lines up with a 0 point on the guard, you know, that you've covered the crankcast pulley with. So the engine, my understanding is I've got the engine at top dead center on number 1. I've got the belt meshed with the crankcast pulley according to the mark, and now what I'm trying to do is actually put on the camshaft pulleys, which will mean we'll have to rotate the camshaft and bolt them on. Quite tricky. It'd be really nice to do this, you know, when the engine wasn't, when you had clear access. It's really quite a pain, but getting there. Well, here we have the timing belt installed. Very nervous about that. You'll notice that there's 2 marks on the wheel, and you'll also notice there's 2 marks on the back wheel. And if you look carefully, you'll notice there's a mark on the belt just coming out of the housing above the harmonic balancer. This belt I bought from Repco. It was like a clearance sale deal, very cheap. I forget what it was. I think something like $40 for the kit. Don't quote me, but and it included the roller here and the roller on the tensioner down below. You can't see it; it's inside the housing for the gear on the crank, and it came without any marks on it. Being a newbie, I didn't mark the belt that I took off, which was probably okay, but I'm guessing it had done 50,000 K, 50,000 K, and so I wrote to Gates and said, you know, your belt doesn't have marks on it, and the secretary wrote back and said, no, like, you know, go away, we don't do that, you know. And so I wrote again and I said, look, it's your belt, you know, and she wrote back and said, no, speak to your mechanic about that. And so I wrote back and I said, oh, look, you know, obviously Joe, who's running the manufacturing plant for the belts, has, you know, gone for smoko, and the thing's run out of ink. You know, if you don't send me the timing belt information, I have to return the belt to Repco. So, you know, lo and behold, a spreadsheet arrives, and the spreadsheet, like, which is the left and which is the right? I mean, you can see the L. The guy that did this before has marked this L on the camshaft timing gear, and you can probably see down here. No, maybe you can't. This one's marked right. Now, underneath and stamped onto the end of the crankshaft, the camshaft there, is an R. And I didn't check here, but I'm assuming there's one on this camshaft for left. So which is the right hand and which is the left hand? I mean, if the motor was straight in the vehicle with a tail shaft, you might have a better chance. But even then, are you looking in from the bonnet or are you from the driver's perspective? Anyway, long story short, I marked the belt. It didn't work. Took it off. I turned it around and marked it the other way. Keep in mind, you've got to have the direction of the boat. The belt's got to go clockwise. And I marked it again, and voila! Actually got those marks to line up. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the position of the camshaft and the crankshaft. But the marks are... you'll see there's a mark on the front of the wheel, and notice that the flange on the wheel is out. Here the flange on the wheel is in, and the marks, the timing marks, are on the flange side, so you don't actually get, you know, to see the outside timing mark specifically. You've got to transfer a mark out, and yeah, tricky exercise, but pretty confident. These wheels have got a 4V and a 3V, but the 4V has got more marking information, and at the end of the day, it's about the camshaft lining up with the crankshaft. So pretty confident. It's also interesting to note that the crankshaft gear is half the size of the camshaft gear. So every time the camshaft turns, the crankshaft turns twice. So 4-stroke motor, figure it out. Anyway, tensioner is the next job down there. And we'll see how we go. Well, this is the tensioner. I've got the pin pretty much forced right in, and I'm pretty confident that I've got that Allen key through both holes in the casing and obviously the pin, but significantly the holes on the opposite side of the casing. I don't think you tighten the vise and then it gives, and then you tighten it a bit and it gives, and then you tighten and it gives. I don't think you get it any tighter. Notice that pin's, you know, right down. Just got a bit of board there to protect the thing, but yeah, that's the tensioner. Wish me luck. So I've just tried to get it in the wrong way. Notice the lip on here. I think that's got to be out because the device isn't symmetrical. It's got an inside and an outside. Also notice that the markings are on the inside. And we're pretty confident it's going to work that way because it doesn't work the other way. Okay. I'm having a shouldn't be this difficult type of day. I've noticed that I couldn't pull the pin out once I got it installed and torqued up and everything's really cool, and I pulled it out and I've noticed that I've actually bent the pin over on the back. So we're going to pull that out and start again. Well, that's what I call victory. Timing belt tensioner in, pin removed, bolts as tight as I can get them with the ring spanner, which is going to be about what was it, 26, and up here the timing belt is really firm, and the marks line up. So yeah, optimistic. So this is the steering pump and the, I don't know, engine mount bracket installed. Probably thinking, gee, he's using lashings of high temperature silicon, but there's a foam rubber that's actually gone away. Difficult to see, but there is a steering pump down there. Somewhere with the steering pump belt. How tight should the steering pump belt be? And we go over here, and you can see there's the steering pump bracket. Anyway, so step one is to get the crankshaft timing belt pulley installed on the end of the crankshaft. Then slide on the cup-shaped washer that acts to keep the belt on the pulley. Then fasten the plastic cover. You can just see the indicator in the right-hand side to the back of the harmonic balancer. Well, no, don't bolt that on yet. Put the timing belt on with the timing belt marks lining up with the dot on the bottom of the pulley. Put a peg on it or something, and then put the plastic cover on that you can see with the 05 whatever thing just to the right of the harmonic balancer. Then come up to the top and set up the timing belt marks on the crank camshafts. You can jiggle the camshafts, and one pulley goes with a flange in. On this one, it's on this right hand side, and then on the left hand side the flange is out, which actually, no, I think it's the other way around. It's the other way around. The flange is outside on this right hand side behind the 3VZFE, and the flange is inside on the left hand side from my view. And you can jiggle the camshafts to actually get the belt on and get the belts marked up. Obviously, before you put the belt on, you want the idler puller for idler pulleys, and especially including the one for the tensioner, belt tensioner. Once you've got the belt on and correctly positioned, you put on the belt tensioner, steering pump belt and tension, and then this bracket here that we're looking at, this one here, and then the cover on the top here, and that's where we're at. Today we're going to go to the back of the engine here and set up the stays. Notice the wiring harness. I've got the wiring harness bolted onto the top, and I've got the bolts done up for the camshaft covers, and I'll be jigging around. There's 3 items to go down the back of the engine there, or the left-hand bank from this point of view. There's the EGR line off the top of the exhaust manifold, and there's two stays, one at either end, that bolt off the head. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and wish me luck. So this is the exhaust manifold with the guards attached. Before, that's the rear exhaust bank, or the left looking from the side, or the right looking. There's the join. So I've got all the guards on it. Don't know if they're going to interfere, and I've cleaned up all of the insides of those. So the next job is to get underneath. This bracket was broken and had some klutzy sort of clamp on it, repair. Welded that up. So yeah, should be good. I've drilled the drilled and tapped. It had what's it called? You know, where you put in the thread thing, the wire. So I've drilled and tapped the manifold and put in a slightly larger bolt. And I've had to drill out the flange on the exhaust pipe here as well. So hopefully those work a little bit better. So there's the injectors and the injector rails installed. The injectors have all got new rubbers, and they've been tested and cleaned. Should be good. A little bit tricky figuring out where all of the pipes and wires go, but coming together. Notice the notch in the rail and the tongue on the fuel line. We've got copper washers on all of the bits, new crush washers. I've got an aluminium washer in there. This has got an O-ring on it. Be nice to replace if I knew I was going there next time. But bit of dielectric grease on these bits and on the injector rubbers to help them go in and seat, and all should be good. Well, this is the exhaust system. Had trouble getting a gasket for this junction here. Ended up using the old gasket, which was leaking, but in pretty good condition. Just covered it with lashings of high temperature silicone. I cut it off, so I've replaced the two bolts that hold it on. That guard actually fits over the two flanges and pulls them together. This bracket here, you can see it was welded where that bolt is there, but I changed the bolt, but it's pretty sus. I don't know if the thread, I'd like to drill it and tap it out to a bigger size, but the thread's inside the chassis, yeah, the whole thing was broken there. I think I might have done a video before about that. I've welded that up, and I put Loctite. I haven't tightened it too tight, so highly recommended that you put the guards on the exhaust pipes before you put them in. I put it in and I just I had to change the position of a couple of clamps. These two here basically. This one here is pretty close, but I think it should be alright. Nothing worse than vibrating exhaust clamps, you know. Hard to get up. I mean, it's hero country up in there, I tell you. But should be good. Touch wood. And getting close to putting the battery in it and starting it. Wish me luck. So this is coming together, all the little bits and pieces, and there's a lot of them. You see that copper fitting down there? That's a digital temperature probe, so that I can monitor the temperature of the heads, or more precisely the intake plenum or whatever it is. Yeah, so coming together. Worry that there'll be something that I haven't connected. That's the ball chain, that's the cruise control. I've lost the cover for that sort of shock arrestor or whatever it is on the end of the fuel rail. You can see it shining in the middle of the screen there. It's underneath the car somewhere. I've searched for it, you know. There's an interesting one. There's a clamp that needs to be fixed. Had a few dramas with the distributor, but I think it's right. We'll see. Well, here we are. Pretty happy with the result. Definitely do it different next time. Take the motor out of the car. Just been working on the exhaust shields. Had a little bit of a vibrate. I've just bent them, one just here at the back, so long, unsupported, and I just stuck the screwdriver in and I was able to open it up a little bit, and it stopped it from vibrating. And this pesky bracket here, which somebody actually welded it to the chassis at one stage. It's coming loose, so I've put a different bolt in it with some high strength Loctite, and I don't know, not sure. I'd like to drill it out and put a larger bolt in it, but I don't know what's inside the chassis, and I worry that it's a bolt that's welded to the inside of the chassis before they welded it up, and that if I try to tap it, the bolt might spin. So I'd really like to see if I can sneak by. So we'll be seeing how that goes, and I've got to replace this brake hose here somewhere on the left hand side. It's got a scratch in it. Having problems getting it roadworthy at the moment, but we'll get there. That's gearbox temperature on the left, battery voltage on the right on the top in red, and inlet manifold temperature, that's just below the radiator cap. Sensor's just below the radiator cap. The one not on the radiator but on the top of the inlet manifold. So sounds good. It's responsive, doesn't miss, it's idling nicely, about 750 RPM. Tiger and Alligator are pretty happy. They're ready to cruise, aren't you, Mo? Yeah, aren't you, Mo? Yeah.